What is up, ladies and gentlemen? It is time for episode 3 of how to draft a championship team around X player in your fantasy football draft. Episode 1, we went over Christian McCaffrey. Again, I still think that's one of the best teams we've ever mocked up in this series. 2, Tyreek Hill, good. Not as good as Christian McCaffrey. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey buoys your team up a lot, but still pretty good. Episode 3, we're going to be looking at CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb just got a massive market resetting. It feels like we've said that a million times over the past few weeks, months, and really years about contracts. But he got a crap ton of money, and he's in Dallas, and that's all that matters. So you can feel safe drafting him at number 3. And so without further ado, let's just jump into it. Let's draft a team around CeeDee Lamb. We're going to take CeeDee Lamb 3. Again, the rules a little bit. Normal rosters, quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, tight end, 2 flexes, kicker, defense, bench. Scoring is half PPR. So again, if you're in a full PPR, standard, different rosters, take that into account a little bit. Obviously, that's going to change who's available, who's not. So here we go. We have CeeDee Lamb. Obviously, last video, well, it looks like the draft board is shaking off a lot differently than last video. Last video, obviously, Derrick Henry's gone. I believe Drake London was gone as well. But now we have both of them back. So CeeDee Lamb going number 1. Question is, who do you take number 2? And honestly, I don't care. I don't care that his age starts with a 3 now. I don't care what running backs used to do. 29, finished 8th. 28, finished 4th. 27th, 21st, but he had a big injury. 3, 5, 15. Dude's an absolute unit. He's a monster. Now he's in an attack where they're going to run a lot more. They have Lamar Jackson to worry about. So he's going to find pay dirt. I think this is going to be the most open that offense is going to be. Is he going to run for 1,800 yards? Probably not. But I think Derrick Henry gets a ton of work. I think their offensive line there is great, and I think he does a very good job running the ball. I love having Derrick Henry here in the late second round. So we'll take him in the second round, and now third round comes around, and what do we have here? Devontae Adams, Devon H. Chain, Travis Kelce, Brandon Ayuk, Isaiah Pacheco, Debo Samuel, Mike Evans. And here I'm going to take a different approach than I have the last couple times. Tyreek Hill, I thought, well, you take Kyron Williams, you want Pacheco with him to make sure you have a strong base at running back. Christian McCaffrey, I said, let's take 2 strong wide receivers because it's not going to be up again. I think you have a really strong wide receiver. I think you have a really strong running back. I think you take Travis Kelce here. All right. I think he is the strongest tight end. He has shown no signs of letting down. The Chiefs need him. And I think if you take Travis Kelce, which we will right here, you have a bona fide star of tight end, running back, wide receiver. Not many teams are going to have that. And you'll also still have some good options in the 4th round as we come around here. So the first 3 picks, CeeDee Lamb, Derrick Henry, Travis Kelce. And here we go in the 4th round. We have Patrick Mahomes, Rashad White, DJ Moore, James Cook, DK Metcalf, Malik Neighbors, Joe Mixon. Again, other draft combinations I've said, let's bulk up the running backs, let's bulk up the wide receivers. You can always get a quarterback later, you can always get tight end later. Here, I think we just go for stars at every position. I think the Patrick Mahomes stack, I think you have a bona fide 1 at running back, at wide receiver, at tight ends. You can get running backs later, right? You can probably get running backs next pick with Joe Mixon, probably around there. Devontae Smith, Michael Pittman can get you wide receivers around there. Alvin Kamara, running back, is going to be around there. So I think right now you go for the best player available. You go for Patrick Mahomes, and you call it a day. And that's what we're going to do. And I think that gives you a star at each position. And as we come around to the 5th round, exactly as we thought. Obviously, Rashad White and Joe Mixon did go, but you still have James Cook if you want to go running back, and Alvin Kamara. You still have DK Metcalf, Michael Pittman if you want to go wide receiver, and Devontae Smith. For me personally, I'm going to want to go running back first. I think CeeDee Lamb is a lot more solid in his role than Derrick Henry. I think they're both solid options, but I'm going to want to bulk up the running back first now instead of later. James Cook, I'm not sold on. Not sold on him at all. Never have been. Never will be. We know Josh Allen's going to get the goal-to-go touches. So for me, I'm going Alvin Kamara, especially with that receiving work. So we'll take him in the 5th round. And you look at this draft, yeah, you need a wide receiver 2 still going to the 6th round, but I think there are still great options there, as we will see as the board comes on down the line. And here comes our pick, and there it is. And that is exactly what we got. So here we are in the 6th round, and the top available there: Dalton Kincaid, T. Higgins, James Conner, George Pickens, Kyle Pitts, Joe Burrow. Obviously, quarterback, tight end, throw them out the window. You don't need them. You got Mahomes and Travis Kelce. Running back, could use, but, James Conner, you're not going to take him now, so you can wait on that. I think the best option here is T. Higgins. I think he's an absolute dog. He's a great wide receiver. I understand he's only made one appearance during the exhibition, but he's going to be a guy. He's going to be a dude. As long as he's not on the field, he's a great option. He's finished top 25 every year he's played a good handful of games. It's going to be the same thing here. T. Higgins is a wide receiver too. He can do a heck of a lot worse. So T. Higgins is the pick in the 6th round. And now we have our pick in the 7th round. Again, don't need a tight end. So Kyle Pitts at the top. Don't really need him. So it just becomes on, what do you want a third of first? Do you want a third of a running back behind Henry and Kamara, or a third behind CeeDee Lamb and T. Higgins? For me, I'm looking at this, DeAndre Swift, Ramondre Stevenson, Najee Harris. Those are great options. And I'm thinking you go running back, and here's why. Yes, you have Keenan Allen, but that's a new offense in Chicago. There are a lot of options there. Christian Kirk, I don't trust Jacksonville. I really don't. Terry McLaurin is good. We can get Chris Godwin, Calvin Ridley, Rashee Rice next round, Jordan Addison. Running backs available next round. Maybe you're able to get Tony Pollard. Maybe you reach on Chubb. Then it's Zach Moss and Jonathan Brooks. So I think right here you go running back. And I think right here you go Ramondre Stevenson. He split time in the backfield with Ezekiel Elliott last year. Still finished his PPR 35. I know it wasn't great, but he played 12 games. He's certainly going – the team can't be any worse than last year. He gets receiving work. So I think he's a good option. Do you want him as a running back 1 or 2? Absolutely not. But guess what? You get him as a running back 3 in a team that has, again, elite quarterback, elite running back, elite wide receiver, elite tight end. So I think he's a great option in the 7th round there. So as we come down to the 8th round, is he gonna? He will make it to us. Well, that is an interesting way for the draft to go. Terry McLaurin did actually find a way to make his way down to us, so we're gonna take him. We're not even gonna talk about it. Terry McLaurin. We took him in the last video when we were building a team around Tyreek Hill. He's nothing special. He's nothing spectacular, but he is the model of consistency. And for a team that only has 2 wide receivers, he is always a plug-and-play wide receiver 3. And if he falls to you, you got to take him. And so he's our 8th round pick. And now we have made it to the 9th round, and we have my other guy. My other guy that I'm going to keep there is Chris Godwin, but we also know I like Nick Chubb a ton. So the question becomes, again, you got 3 running backs, you got 3 wide receivers. Do you go running back or wide receiver? And for me, it's coming down to Chris Godwin, Nick Chubb. How I separate him is Chris Godwin, will he get into your team every week? Yes. Nick Chubb, will he get into your team every week? Yes. So they're tied there. The next level for me becomes, who is going to be the difference maker? If I draft him, who's going to be the guy that takes me to the next level in the playoffs or in the last few weeks this season? That's Nick Chubb. He's going to miss the first 4 weeks. But again, you have Derrick Henry, Alvin Kamara, Ramondre Stevenson. A cataclysmic amount of injuries would have to happen for that to hurt you with those 3 running backs to start. So with that being said, I think Nick Chubb is the guy here, and we're going to take him. And on top of that, he's on the PUP list, so he can be on your IR, and you have an extra roster spot. So you don't have to draft a kicker or defense. You can pick one up on waivers and roster an extra player in your team as well. So as we wait around for round 10, we get to it here, and it's a really round. It really is. There's not a ton. There really isn't. Obviously, outside of quarterbacks and tight ends, you get Devin Singletary, Christian Watson, JSN, Gus Edwards, Brian Thomas. And I'm gonna pick the one wild card. Um, I think it's Brian Thomas. I think he's done an okay job. I think they picked him high for a reason. I think he's going to become a quick favorite. I don't think he's going to be anything special, but as a wide receiver 4, I think he can do that. And I think Jacksonville's going to be passing a lot, so I like Brian Thomas there as well. So as we go down to round 11, we get there, and guess what? Our guy is there, Ezekiel Elliott. But in the sake of not taking him in every draft, we'll go a little different way, and we'll look at we're going to look at Trey Benson. Trey Benson is here. I think James Conner is definitely injury prone, and Trey Benson is a heck of a player. James Conner is good, but I think Trey Benson long term is going to be better. Again, you already have 4 running backs, so I don't think this is a place where you take a flyer. And I think Trey Benson, even if he doesn't do anything off the batter for a few weeks, I think he's good trade bait, especially to somebody who owns James Conner, right? Somebody who's a little scared of that injury coming up, especially if their team isn't deep. I think he's a good injury luxury to have and a good trade bait piece. So I think he's good to take at 11. And here we go to round 12. We are at round 12, and these opportunities just keep presenting themselves. We have tight ends, right? And we have everything else. And so common wisdom would tell me TJ Hawkinson, because he can be a difference maker. And think about it, a team of Travis Kelce and TJ Hawkinson, mind blown, right? I mean, it's going to be absolute fire the last few weeks of the season. But here, I still think there are a couple questions with the wide receiver room. I love CeeDee Lamb. I love T. Higgins as a 2. I love McLaurin as a 3, but Brian Thomas as a 4 really doesn't shore it up a ton for me, right? And so I understand, we're talking depth pieces here. I think right now the big issue is wide receiver. And I don't trust Curtis Samuel. And Romeo Doubs is good, but I think there are a lot of mouths to feed there. I think it's Tyler Lockett. I understand his 1,000-yard receiving streak ended last year after 4 years. He's still got a heck of a lot of targets, really more than he's seen since 2020. So I understand he's questionable. I understand he's not practicing, but again, he's one of those depth pieces that is going to come through for you. He's going to be decent. If you need him, he'll be a good safety blanket, right? You're not going to expect him to post wide receiver 1 numbers, but I think he's a great option there for you. And as the draft comes around, guess who made it back to us? It was TJ Hawkinson, of course. So honestly, I'm just going to resume and take him right here, because you look at this team again. You have the running backs, you have the wide receiver, you have the depth, you have the star power. This is one of the few years you can get a star in the 11th, 12th, 13th round of TJ Hawkinson. Again, I understand he's on the PUP list, but when he comes back, he will be a monster, right? If Sam Darnold sucks, or if he gets hit early, guess what? Has to do check down. And on top of that, I think Kevin O'Connell is a fantastic quarterback mind. We've seen what he's done with Josh Dobbs last year. I mean, I know it didn't end well, but he still did a fantastic job with a player who was a nothing before that, really. So I think he's a great option. And again, if you have 2 IR pieces or 2 IR slots on your team, you can put Chubb and Hawkinson there, and you have an extra 2 players to pick up. And so in the draft, when you don't go kicker or defense, because you can stream them by week, you're even better. So if we come to the 14th round, I'm not going to take too much time on this. We've talked about guys here, and I think here you take a shot in the dark. You take a throw at the dartboard. Adonai Mitchell. I like what I've seen from him. I don't know what his role is going to be, but he's definitely has promise. And then next pick, a lot of running backs are available. I think Tyler Algier is another guy. He's kind of like a Trey Benson, where you can say, hey, to a James Conner owner, I know one of your running backs is gone. You can't afford to lose Conner. Here's Trey Benson. You can do the exact same with Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson, especially since Algier has proven it with the 1,000-yard season in his rookie year. So to go over the team again, if you take CeeDee Lamb in the third pick overall, and your draft falls like mine, you take Derrick Henry in the 2nd, Travis Kelce in the 3rd, Patrick Mahomes in the 4th, Kamara in the 5th, Higgins in the 6th, Stevenson in the 7th, McLaurin in the 8th, Chubb in the 9th, Brian Thomas in the 10th, Trey Benson in the 11th, Lockett in the 12th, Hawkinson and Adonai Mitchell in the 13th and 14th, and Algier in the 15th. And I think, honestly, I like this more on the Hill draft. You're pushed up in some of those rounds, so, you can get Derrick Henry to fall to you, Patrick Mahomes to fall to you, T. Higgins to fall to you. And you look at this roster, man, the starting roster of Mahomes, Henry, Kamara, Lamb, Higgins, Kelsey, Ramondre Stevenson, Terry McLaurin. You can throw T.J. Hawkinson in there when he's coming back. You can throw Chubb in there when he's coming back. I mean, that's an all-star cast right there. A lot of ifs on those injury returns, but overall, I mean, we have seen what those players can do. They are proven. You have depth everywhere. And the biggest part is, even if some of those guys don't work, even if Derrick Henry doesn't work, right? Even if that doesn't work, you have pieces you can trade. You have trade bait like Brian Thomas. You have trade bait like Trey Benson, Tyler Algier. Tyler Lockett could do a lot better, and people might need a wide receiver. Push comes to shove, really. You have two tight ends that week 8, you go, hey, I can part with one elite tight end, get a good haul back for that. So I think that's a great team, a championship team to draw around CeeDee Lamb in the 3rd pick. And with CeeDee Lamb's new contract, don't have to worry about that pick either. So tell us, what did you think? What did you agree with? What did you not agree with? Are you looking to draft CeeDee Lamb, or are you still a little worried about him, missing some cap? Let us know. As always, like and subscribe.